There's no reason for you not to pay your barber or grocer and so on in Libra.
This is Value Tokenized with CryptoTwins. In this episode, we're interviewing Michael Pearl, Director of Content at Finance Magnates. PR, content, and media coverage is a very important topic in blockchain industry, including tokenized securities, of course, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about with Michael today. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today at Value Tokenized. It's a pleasure.
Hi, happy to be here. Finally, being featured by the CryptoTwins. It's an honor.
Can you start by telling a little bit about yourself and your career path?
Sure. So I've been in the content/journalism business for about a decade, 4 years of which I've been in Finance Magnates. I started here as the head of intelligence, which is basically consultancy and research. We have a branch that basically deals with data and some internal information from the industry. And later on, I moved to managing the newsroom of Finance Magnates. And currently, I'm the director of content, which means that I'm basically in charge of the entire gamut of the content operations, whether it's the news, the intelligence, and the events, the content part of the events, which we have quite a lot, about 6 events around the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So prior to that, I was a journalist. I worked for a very large, actually the largest business daily in Israel, which is called Kalkalist. I was an editor and correspondent at the global economy section. And I'm a lawyer, but nobody's perfect.
That's a very impressive background. Yeah, and Finance Magnates pays a lot of attention to blockchain technology and all variations of distributed ledger. So, and to you personally, what is the most exciting feature of this technology, and why you yourself are promoting and pushing this forward?
So first of all, I would just like to stress that Finance Magnates started covering cryptocurrency and blockchain in around 2013. So for that matter, it's ages ago in the world of crypto. And we take much pride in that because back then it was kind of a fringe facet of, if any, of the fintech industry. And nobody really believed in it, or at least the majority of the people were kind of, condescending towards it. And we really believed in, Bitcoin at first, and the more general cryptocurrency industry, in total. So we started covering it in 2013, and I'm very happy to say that now we are, very well connected in terms of covering this industry. So to address your question, I think that the most interesting thing that blockchain technology brings to the table, and especially in the finance world, is trust. Because I don't have to go and explain on how we're living in a very global and digitized world, but something is lacking basically, because once you work long distance and once you work with people from all around the world, without being have to see them physically and meet them and talk to them, you need to have a certain level of trust. So just to give you an example, hiring employees and paying paying salaries and managing the entire functions of and operations of managing a multinational global company is something that blockchain technology can solve to a very large extent. Smart contracts for paying salaries, for conducting projects with freelancers. That's only one example that comes to mind. Obviously, in the world of finance, in a more broader perspective, the issue of having real digitized money and finally having this digital monetary revolution that we're looking for. I think that's something that is I'm very excited about, and it is yet to be seen how it will be done. We cannot ignore, obviously, Libra and what it brings to the table. It was quite fascinating to hear some of the experts that talked during the Barcelona trading conference that we just conducted. And it's about 50-50, half and half. Half of the people say, yeah, well, it's just another, Facebook project deemed to be unsuccessful. Facebook tried this a few times a while ago. And the others actually believe that it will be a game changer for the industry. And it's fascinating, if we could just leap 5 years forward to see where is it going to take us. Will Libra be the global coin, or maybe it will, just paraphrasing that meme that we see on Telegram now with a Trojan horse carrying bitcoins in his stomach, entering the city, labeled as Libra. So it's yet to be seen, but it's very exciting either way.
Yeah. What's your personal outtake on this?
I think that eventually the process of Libra, not perhaps not the currency per se, but the mere process of introducing a cryptocurrency on such a large scale to such a big audience as Facebook can approach is something that the world cannot ignore. And if until now, and unfortunately even now, I was talking about 2013, but even now in mid 2019, Bitcoin and crypto is kind of on the fringes yet. We in Finance Magnates have also the perspective of the more classical, traditional finance, and we see that a lot of companies and banks are quite skeptical and reluctant to get their hands dirty, so to speak, with crypto. I think that eventually Libra and Facebook in general have the ability to basically to bring this mass adoption that we're all waiting for. I wouldn't be surprised to see that in 3 years from now, most of the e-commerce trades will be done in Libra to some extent, at least as a intermediary coin. And later on, people will perhaps start paying for services, even for domestic nearby services. I mean, there's no reason for you not to pay your barber or grocer and so on in Libra. And Facebook has a way of facilitating that. They will obviously need to do a lot of trial and error because it's a very new thing, and there will be a lot of obstacles. But eventually, I believe that it will go through. Only God knows how it will influence the world in whole and our economy. But it's fascinating indeed.
You mentioned mass adoption, which is actually a very hot topic now. And in terms of PR and marketing, as an expert on this field, the blockchain and crypto industry, it seems like something that needs like generally PR and marketing in itself on the industry level to reach exactly mass adoption. How do you think we can get there, and how it can be facilitated with some of the marketing technologies?
So unfortunately, on that topic, I'm far less optimistic because I'm kind of amazed to see how very sophisticated and cutting edge technology companies are so good at what they're doing and can introduce amazing products. But on the other hand, when it comes to showcasing the products and communicating them to the masses, or even to more sophisticated masses, I'm sorry to say that most of them fail in this. So you can have a great company and you can have a great product, great design, all that, and you can have a great team. But eventually, if you don't know how to communicate this on the marketing level and on the PR level, then unfortunately you cannot succeed, you cannot scale, and definitely you cannot push mass adoption. So I think that the industry is very immature when it comes to working with the media. I see that on a daily basis. I understand them to some level, to some extent, because at the end of the day, those companies have limited budgets, and probably a PR and communications manager is not going to be their first hire. But I believe that along the way, when a company scales, it needs that function. And I can give you a lot of examples of companies that just don't know how to do it properly. Just on a very technical level, if you have a new product or you have some sort of a strategic deal with a very large company, just sending out an email to a list of 1,000 media outlets is not a very good idea. And and also, we see competition rising. I mean, take a look at crypto exchanges. So back in the days, you had like what, 5 exchanges that were competing one against each other, and the industry and the community was quite small, so everybody knew who's who. Now you have, I don't know, an endless amount of crypto exchanges. Some of them have zero volume, but they still exist to some level. And in this matter, for me, for instance, as a newsroom manager in my past position, it was virtually impossible to understand who has a viable product and who doesn't. And it was very hard to understand, what makes you different from the other guy. So I think that crypto projects have to work very hard in terms of how they are presenting themselves, what language do they use, and what facet of their job are they showcasing. So if you are the cheapest, you should say that you're the cheapest. Don't go into buzzwords and start talking about making the world a better place. Especially if you turn to the retail community, if you turn to traders. At the end of the day, traders want to trade. They want to do it in the fastest way. They want to do it in the safest way, and they want to pay as less fees as possible. So if you understand their needs, just communicate, your advantages and show why should they pick you eventually. And if you have an amazing deal that you just signed with some liquidity provider that will allow you to offer a better service to your clients, why not communicate this? I know it sounds easier than it is actually to be done, but that's something that crypto executives need to address and need to take into account, because right now most of them are not doing a very good job in this.
Yeah. And one more, like a whole new world, so to say, security tokens and tokenization of assets in general. And what is the specifics of PR and communication in this field? Because that's where the legal part strongly comes in. And what are the specifics, like for public offering, for private placement?
So STOs are kind of in the middle, are kind of in the gray area between crypto and real world finance, especially with fundraising, and in this area, I think that in order for security tokens and other digitized securities offerings to attract investors, they need to do a very serious job in proving that they are transparent and that they are safe and that they are regulated. Obviously, all three overlap and all three are interconnected. But at the end of the day, we trust the IPO system. God knows why, because there were a lot of problems with it. But still, in the back of our heads, it's considered to be a very safe method, where obviously you will have a certain risk, but this risk can be mitigated by a prospectus and other mechanisms that the regulator kind of planted there to make sure that your money is going to be safe. And if you are to lose money, it will be due to the market, and not due to negligence or theft or other malpractices. Whereas when it comes to security tokens, it is yet to be proven. So for that matter, going back to your question on the general PR issues, if you offer some sort of a digitized security offering, and you have the necessary guarantees to basically to guarantee to investors that they will have their money back, and that their money is safe for now, before they are able to make profit, you should showcase that. Obviously, one of the best ways to do that is to prove a viable regulatory framework that you follow. Regulation is king when it comes to kind of a proof of work in terms of being safe and transparent and so on. And there are other ways to do that as well. Obviously, a lot of digital securities use familiar faces, kind of economy and finance celebs to prove that they are worth it. That's also a good method. And again, it increases trust and reliability. So security tokens, when it comes to security tokens, it's kind of tricky, because obviously the sums that we deal with, the amount of money that is being invested, is bigger than just investing, throwing $100 on some coin, and it's not as liquid as trading coins. It's kind of a long-term engagement. So you need to work very hard in communicating what you do and proving that you do it right. Unlike the exchanges that I gave as an example, there are not that many digital security offerings right now. So the competition is not that fierce. So it's kind of a very good chance to storm that market and to show what you got, and to try to get a market share. But again, it needs to be done in the right way, and you also need to basically to put your money where your mouth is, in terms of proving that you have the viable guarantees for returning the money, and that's kind of evolves around that.
And I also have a question about Blockstack, which was recently approved as the first ever Reg A Plus token offering. I mean, some say that they don't understand the excitement around it. And actually, it sounds like a very good PR because it's everywhere in the news. What do you think of Blockstack's case?
I think that at the end of the day, we still rely very much on regulators to again to be some sort of a stamp of trust and reliability. And whenever a regulator acknowledges a company in the crypto world, and especially in the digitized securities world, I think that it's an amazing PR. And obviously, that also means that the company was serious enough and diligent enough to go through a certain regulatory process. So I think that definitely we're going to see a lot more companies, try and go about, the kind of the green line of being approved by the regulator. We see that in the ETF world, where in the US they didn't get much success from walking this path, but eventually it will come through. And we see companies being more and more diligent and more creative in how they are giving the necessary guarantees to the regulator as well. I mean, I was talking about the guarantees that they provide the investors with, but the regulators are also a audience that needs to be convinced, and needs to see certain guarantees in order for them to give the green light. So I think that we're going to see this competition and this kind of race towards the regulators in the future as well, because we live in a decentralized world, but still regulation is very centralized, and there is no alternative to that, except for SROs, for self-regulated organizations, entities. That is also something that we're going to see a lot in the crypto world. We already have quite a few of those. Crypto UK, if I'm not wrong, is one of the biggest ones. Atom in the world of liquidity. So SROs are kind of a detour of regulation.
Yeah.
It's kind of regulating yourself in a cheaper and an easier way. So that's also a path to walk upon, and that is also something that needs to be communicated, because if you join a certain SRO, that's a very good idea to communicate this and to spread the word.
So, and I think that Blockstack case is kind of like a very example of very good PR. So it's like a stamp of quality from the regulator. But a lot of companies during so-called crypto winter suffered a lot because of general perception that cryptocurrencies devaluated a lot, people lost money, and so on and so forth. So a lot of companies, even those who are doing high quality products, still suffered from this reputation crisis. So from also the like communications, what is the best way to overcome this? Because some people say that we should not mention blockchain or crypto at all, go another way. What's your opinion on this?
So I think there are a few questions here. One is the general, reputation of crypto and crypto investment and crypto companies. And here, what's interesting to see is basically the differences between different places in the world. So when you go to Asia, for instance, Korea and Japan in specific, you see that blockchain and crypto in specific are not as toxic as they are in other parts of the world. Uh, by the way, thanks to two main things. One is heavy regulation, heavy and adequate regulation. The regulator, addressing the issue on time, not waiting till bad things will happen and only then, targeting the industry. And the second one would be mass adoption, because at the end of the day, it's numbers do talk, and when you have plenty of adopters, and when the market share is felt, and it's not just some fringe investment, then the regulator has no other choice but to address it, and the public is more positive towards it. Because imagine, I mean, if every household in your country would have at least one person invested in crypto, or dealing with crypto, or paying with crypto, then all of a sudden you're more educated about this, you're less afraid about this, and you will probably be also more positive towards the notion. Whereas if it's only a matter of a few cyberpunks dealing with crypto, that is something that will definitely not give you good reputation. Now, the second issue is basically crisis management. We all know that due to the high volatility, due to the decentralized nature of the industry, there are a lot of crises, primarily hacks. That is something that we see a lot going on. About a year and a half ago, during the hype, we saw much more hacks. But even now, when the industry kind of took a dive and recovering, we see quite a lot of cybersecurity issues going on. So I think that most of the companies, and we can go back and we can examine a few case studies, but just as a general statement, most of the companies didn't deal with hacks that well, because most of them just went underground, didn't issue any statements, and just let the chatter do its job. And the chatter obviously is very negative. And this industry, I think, not like any other industries, is very talked about on Telegram, Reddit, Twitter, and so on. It's a very social media oriented industry. And then it's enough for you to have a few people saying that their funds are lost for you to be basically grilled on the social media grill. So it's definitely not a good idea to go underground and to disappear. The best way to go about it would be, if indeed such hack took place, to acknowledge it. Only today we had a case, and we just reported on, let me see, Bitcoin, the Japanese crypto exchange, that they acknowledged the hack. They published the losses, the actual numbers. They offered their clients to be reimbursed. There is a dispute now on how they're going to be reimbursed, but as a general notion, it's a very positive action done by the crypto exchange. If you're not here to kind of churn and burn, if you really want to stay here for long, and if you want to build a certain brand, then you might as well address it. And if it means that you have to spend a certain amount of money to make those clients happy and less frustrated over the funds that were stolen, and if you need to prove that you have boosted your cybersecurity team, then so be it. That's what you need to do in order to stay here. We see that outside of the cryptocurrency world and even outside of the financial world, a lot of companies are experiencing crises, and eventually they pour a lot of money into making things right and into mitigating this issue. So that's another facet of what I mentioned earlier about maturity. You need to understand that if you want to stay here for long, you need to take a deep breath. You need to start writing a few checks, and then after a while, you're gonna be in the next cycle where this hack or this breach will be forgotten, and you will once again you can kind of recover from it.
All right, I think that was it for today. Do you have some else questions?
No, I think that was the last one.
Okay.
I just have a like a general statement for companies following what we were talking about. I think that the main the main best practice from my side for companies in terms of communication and in terms of PR is just uh, speaking in a very simple and understandable way. Companies hire content managers who sometimes make things more complicated and start talking either tech lingo or start talking on a very high level. And what they have to remember that eventually their traders are normal people that just want to that are interested in the industry, whether from more from the value point of view or from the just making a quick buck. Either way, it's okay, and they need to communicate it properly in a very simple manner, not going to buzzwords and big statements, but just saying what they stand for, what they are, what they offer, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very important thing for everybody who's involved in the space to hear.
Yeah, thank you for this advice and thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was very interesting and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you girls so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
This was Value Tokenized. Thank you for being with us.
Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like.